Outsource everything, questions, comments, feedback, and also all of us can get ahead and be smarter through the wisdom of the crowd. So thank you everyone for attending.
So this event is going to be recorded. We'll be sharing the recording with everyone who's attended, and we're also going to be live streaming it. So it's going to be an exciting discussion. You can follow us on, like what Jeff just shared, on our Twitter, Facebook, and also our YouTube live. Again, thank you everyone for jumping in. I want to say, we actually sent out emails to all the attendees, and a couple hundred responses. We were kind of curating what kind of questions and topics we should bring up. And so I want to thank everyone for their feedback. And there's a lot of interesting ones. I hope we can get to as many as we can. But just to give everyone a feel for the event, it's going to be kind of like a fireside chat. We have about 15 speakers, and we'll kind of go around. We have 5 high-level topics that we'll be going through. And we'll so it's an hour event. We're going to spend about 20 minutes for each one, kind of unpack the topics, hear the different perspectives from the different speakers. But, we're hoping that if we can wrap up in time, we'll have some room for Q&A. But if not, definitely write your questions in the Zoom chat or Q&A. If everyone can just chime in, in the chat, you make sure it's going to everyone. But hey, introduce yourself. Where are you from? Your name, what company you're with, and where you're from. That's a good introduction that you can just paste into the chat. Hey, Moon Man. I love these names.
Maybe if we can start off and people can share their location and where they're based out of in real life and maybe the metaverse if some people are hanging out virtually and want to stay anonymous as well. Nice. Israel.
Maddie, you're very well known. You're on I believe it's CoinMarketCap's top most influential people. So thank you for joining us. Hey, Mike, how's it going? Matt from Illinois. Miko's got his hand up. All right, we'll be starting soon. So we're adding everyone as a panelist. We can actually start adding the panelists into. If you're a speaker, yeah, go ahead and raise your hand. So it'll be easy for us to promote you. But let's start doing that. Hey, Leo from the Philippines, welcome. All right, so we're inviting the panelists to jump in. You will be promoted to a speaker panelist. And so go ahead, turn on your video, turn on your audio. We're excited to have you. Anthony, John, welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Looks a little cold where you are, Miko.
Yeah, I'm in the car.
The mobile office, that's the best one.
Don't worry, I'm not driving.
I was going to say something, but you're already ahead of it. All right, so welcome everyone. If you're just jumping in and joining today's mastermind, we'll be talking about topics around play to earn gaming. We have a esteemed list of speakers that'll be joining us. Alex, welcome. And everyone. To give everyone kind of a feel of the event, it's going to be similar to a fireside chat in the digital world. So everyone's going to be joining in through Zoom. We are taking some questions through the Q&A feature on Zoom and also on chat. We'll see how much time we have at the end of the event for any Q&As, but feel free to communicate inside of the chat, ask the questions there. Speakers are encouraged to answer them throughout the event, but this is going to be a 1 hour. It's going to be jam-packed. We have 6 overarching topics that we'll cover. I'll go ahead and introduce that shortly. But welcome everyone. Looks like people are really filling in right now. How's everybody doing? Brad, welcome.
Hello.
Hello. On my team, if you can just rename some of these speakers so it has their name and in their company so that the guests, the attendees can see where they're from.
And we'll also be dropping in social media links to all of the panelists here that have joined us. Please support their companies and also follow them on social media because they're about to blow your minds. And this is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of learning, educating yourself, engaging with all their projects because they truly are doing something amazing in the space. And we've been big fans of theirs for a while now. So.
All right, we've got a lot of these attendees are also deep into the metaverse. We have a lot of projects here. So a lot of them are coming to you speakers for thought leadership. So if there's any questions that show up in the chat or the Q&A, feel free to type it in and answer there. It's kind of free for all. If you know the answer, you can fill it in really fast. But yeah, we will be entertaining Q&As if we have enough time. I'm trying to go through all the questions that people are asking. Welcome, Karen. Thank you for joining from Hong Kong. All right, we have Alan. Oh, nice. Okay, I think we're waiting for a few more panelists. If you can jump in and you can show your video, that'd be awesome. And I know my team's going around and updating everyone's name on their profile. So it says your name and in your company. Karen, hello, hello. Thank you for joining.
Hello, good morning. Good morning. Yes, need to make sure I get out of bed. Here I am. Morning.
And you've entered the metaverse.
Totally.
Hey, Lan, welcome, welcome. All right, so I think this is a good start. Jeff, you want to kick it off with the welcome and we'll go over the 5 topics that we'll be talking through today.
Nice. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Crowdcreate's Play to Earn Gaming Mastermind. This event is meant to educate, entertain, and really connect all of you with thought leaders in the gaming space. We crowdsourced and specifically chose some of the speakers here to bring insights about what's going on in GameFi, Play to Earn, and everything in between. So we ask that all of you engage, follow the speakers here. Again, it's going to be a jam-packed session of hot topics that were crowdsourced from the speakers to provide as much value as possible and really educate all of you. So thanks for joining.
All right. So before you answer, you can do like a quick, who you are, just a really quick one. We don't have to go too much into everyone's backgrounds because I believe everyone is probably very well aware of who you are. And you can always still see your names inside of the profile name. So we're going to go through the 5 topics. I know all the speakers have already been, told about these topics, but for everyone attending, the topics for the day are going to be, is play to earn gaming a sustainable model? So we'll be talking about some of the economies that are being built. Number 2, how to increase GameFi mass adoption. Number 3, we're going to be unpacking interoperability. So this is a big topic right now, especially with, are we developing into silos? What is it looking like? Number 4, what are the development opportunities in GameFi? Number 5, what is the future of play to earn gaming? Right now, we're kind of figuring it out as we go, but there's, these thought leaders here on the stage can provide a lot of insights. And then number 6, best growth channels for blockchain games. So, this could be marketing techniques, to what channels, to, which social media platforms are working well. So those are the 5 topics we're gonna be talking about. Again, before we kick off, I wanna say thank you everybody for joining. If you have any questions, feel free to type it into the Q&A or the chat. The speakers are all encouraged to respond there. So thank you everyone for joining. So let's kick it off. I know when we had a rehearsal session, this one topic actually was probably like 30-40% of our discussion. It's around sustainability. So is play to earn gaming a sustainable model? I think a great person to kick this off is actually Nico. We've had lots of talks about this, but yeah, let's kind of hear it at a high level and we'll dive in.
I can be the Oscar the Grouch of this topic, right? Which is coming out of my trash can. I'm like, no. And then I'll like go back in my trash can. No, but seriously, like, is play to earn sustainable? Like, just look at the name, right? The name is play to earn, right? So it means that everyone who's playing is there for the purpose of earning, right? So if you're playing to earn, then what happens if you, so what it means is it means that if nobody's there for any other reason, right, then it really means that the game that gives you the most earnings, right, is what you will play by definition, right? And so it becomes a race to the bottom that we're already seeing. We're already seeing this in DeFi, right? Is in DeFi, we're seeing this idea of there's a liquidity boost, right? It's like, oh, I'm giving away all of my treasury. Come over and farm my thing, right? So it's like, great, you're giving away your whole treasury. I'm gonna farm your thing, right? As soon as the treasury is depleted, then they immediately farm it out, they sell, and then they leave, and they go like a cloud of locusts to the next thing to deplete it, right? That's it, right? So like, if your only purpose is to earn, right, and you're not playing to play, right, then it's not sustainable. Like, it doesn't make any damn sense at all, right? If you're gonna play and earn, then I'm okay, and then it could be sustainable. But I think if you're only there to earn, and I'm not talking about the players, I'm really talking about the game designers, right? Which is, if you're designing your game only with the idea of play to earn, right, what is that, right? It's a giveaway, right? So eventually you're gonna run out of cash and people will just leave.
And we're seeing that with some of the games today. You know, this is a lot of controversies, but also a lot of news are popping up about this. But I'd like to open up to everyone here. We have some game developers, we have some other investors, we have all sides of that ecosystem.
So I obviously think it can be sustainable, but I think it has to really match our real economy, where players create value for other players. You know, so you don't just get paid. You don't get paid by the company who runs the game. Players pay players, like a real economy. I think you can actually make that model fairly sustainable.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, Alex. I do want to build up on that because both, as Miko said, play and earn is a very different tokenomics model than play to earn. And players paying players, so creating a real economy around the game elements is the sustainable model. If you're just paying out of treasury and hopefully it's a finite treasury and not infinite, because then it has no value. You can pay from treasury, but at the end it's going to be zero. The value that the tokens are able to hold, it changes the approach a lot. And it's same for DeFi, it's same for gaming. Just a quick background on those who may not be familiar, but I am the CEO of a DeFi protocol powered by a bank. So we have a bank, we have a DeFi protocol, and our whole approach to metaverse and gaming is we want to create these connections between the games, different blockchains, different elements of life and your game. So you can have that model that Alex is mentioning, where you can create value within the game environment for other people, and they want to pay you for it. And now you have an economy because it's not dependent on the game's treasury. It's not dependent on playing, grinding something so you get paid. It's interaction, human interaction, just not in the real world, but in a virtual environment, whether you want to call it a metaverse, a game, doesn't matter. You create economic activity among its members, and that is very sustainable. I mean, if you look at any traditional model, you'll see that as soon as different participants in the economy start creating value for each other, it starts growing and becoming much more vibrant.
Hey guys, this is Aber, CTO of Jam City. Yeah, I think it's important to remember that we're still in the first inning of this space, and a lot of the projects that we've seen launched actually may not have been designed for sustainability at all. They may have been testing a theory or possibly trying to make money. I mean, the temptation to actually, you know, if you do a $40 million NFT drop, to pocket that money instead of reinvesting it back into the economy is pretty high. So I think as the space matures, we're going to see more sustainability and more kind of long-term game design or economy design here.
Sustainability. I think Miko is right. It helps if the gaming fundamentals are actually fun. I mean, sure, Axie Infinity can be sort of fun, like if you're playing with your Axies on basically the same screen all day. But take a game like Diablo 2, where you actually move across different cities and continents, exploring dungeons and fighting hundreds of different monster types, right? That's for fun. And of course, we have the loot aspect of the game as well. That can't be underestimated. The lure of a super awesome item that will bump up your stats, make great grinding all the easier. You're reluctant to give up these legendary items because you've worked so damn hard to get them, and because they make the grind of finding new items easier. So I think that also helps make the economy sustainable. And when they do sell, like on Traderay or J2GSP forum or whatever, those items are put right back into the game economy so others can continue the grind.
I think the biggest.
Okay, go ahead, Hero. Go ahead.
I think the biggest context here is we've literally only had one game that has, had a play to earn element that lasted for whatever, kind of 3, 4, 5 months, and I guess what we've seen is that did work for a certain period of time, but as with all economic systems, if it becomes a situation, it becomes a situation where if people can make profit on it, then just more people come in, and eventually, there's no way any economic system can basically fulfill an increasing number of people coming in and extracting. So clearly, I think we're all sort of talking around the houses of Axie Infinity. Axie Infinity is clearly, totally remodeled its entire economy. Clearly, I think free to play, sort of play to earn games can work. The question is, I guess, really to be specific, is what we're saying is, can another Axie Infinity come along where people can extract $5 to $10 a day, and that economy basically become an economy that is millions of people, tens of millions of people, because clearly there's hundreds of millions of people for whom $5 to $10 a day extra revenue is massively material, in terms of how they can run their lives. I think as soon as you sort of take that away and say, if a play to earn game is $1 a day or 50 cents a day, clearly you can build out those economies because you just have bigger sinks. But I think we're all slightly falling down the rabbit hole of Axie Infinity and what it was maybe in November last year. And from that point of view, I don't think we will really see a game like that operating at that scale again this year, because it was just a very particular product that had been around for 4 years in a particular sort of bull market. And that just sort of, that product, as we all know, went from hundreds of thousands of people to millions of players a day. And that drove some weird speculative sort of bubble. So I don't think that's going to happen again, but clearly we can have play to earn games where people maybe can extract 50 cents a day, which even for a lot of people in the world is still fairly significant. And I think as we get deeper into proper game design, as what Abba was saying, we can build economies where people can do certain things and other people pay for them. So that's the whole thing that we've had in the past, where time is constant in all our lives. We only have 24 hours a day, but for some people in the world, their time is very much less valuable for what they can produce than to other people in the world. So clearly it can be done, but I would just sort of question the fact that we probably in our heads had this idea of like $5 to $10 a day, which I think is probably where that's going to be pretty hard to do.
That's a good
and
point.
I'll just to butt in, I guess I'll add in this total. I don't know if I necessarily agree with this, but to be a total devil's advocate, there was an article by a guy named Paul Butler about play to earn and bullshit jobs that ended up being #1 on Hacker News, the Y Combinator. I assume a good amount of people on this panel, or certainly the attendees, have read it, but he was basically just saying that, ultimately in-game labor is just a rebranding of gameplay designed to be dull enough that rich players will pay to outsource it to poor players. So in spite of being presented as the future of work by some VCs and, lots of futurists and all this stuff, the incentives generally don't make sense. And he has this line, which is, floors don't have to be swept in the metaverse unless they're designed to need sweeping. So I know a lot of the folks have already made some similar points, but I thought it was worth it to be said on the panel.
Yeah,
I
thank you.
think
I
you
just want to
can.
jump in a little bit also, again, from an investor perspective. And again, we're not directly invested in some of these play-to-earn games, but we invested into Animoca brands and the Sandbox and Metaki. And when we look from it as an investor point of view, obviously what is very interesting to see that this play-to-earn has definitely shifted the consumer expectations in the industry. And I think that's something that's really interesting, and that we truly believe is here to stay. So again, looking into the sustainability of very specific games, etc., that's actually a nice and interesting question. But I think what it really, and some of it of you guys mentioned, I think Miko also very early in his introduction mentioned it. It's really interesting to understand now, why do players play a game, right? And what are their expectations while playing it? Is it a pure consumption, or does it start earning some type of economic value? But I think underlying what is really, really interesting is the learning effect that it had. So for the first time, people really understand, like, wait a second, when I spend time, when I spend my creativity, it has a value, and actually beyond just making the game developers rich, there's something in it for me. And I think what is really, really thrilling is obviously the ripple effect that it has to the entire ecosystem around gaming, right? So what do I do with these type of assets that I earn? I think look what happened with Axie Infinity in the Philippines. I think some of these Filipino people in the outskirts of Manila know much more better how to convert cryptocurrencies into fiat than some other sophisticated people, in places that you would think would lead the way. And I think what it really is interesting as well, obviously for us, is to see the educational effect it has not only on the gaming industry, but it has on other industries as well, right? When consumers start to understand that, their own data, again, their time, their creativity is worth something, and some of that value creation should definitely fall back into their pocket. So definitely very bullish. It will stay here for sure.
To go back to that article and what it was saying about sweeping floors in the metaverse, I think you can have gameplay mechanics that are meant to slow down players, that can be outsourced to other players. I think that's fine, but you can also actually create real content for your game and make money from that. I mean, when Fortnite releases a new dance, they make millions of dollars. And I know there's a technical barrier for your average player making their own dance, but it's not. It is overcomable, and there is the technology to actually give that creativity to players. So why not have a future where someone can do a cool dance and actually put that on the marketplace and sell that? It's not an impossible future.
Very valid what you're saying there, because even when you look at what Axie Infinity recently announced is Origin, which they're going to be issuing free starter Axies, right? So it removes some of that barrier, and that means more users, more opportunity for players to get attached to the game and invest in digital items. It could be a little dance, things of that nature as well.
Yeah, I also want to add up some points from an investor and also a very addict game player. I like to play a lot of games like The Witcher 3. I believe a lot of people also play that games. So I think like play to earn, like what have been just said, actually it's been a very old model, have been adopted in the gaming industry for a long while. Like the rich players, they usually like maybe some poor players that they adopt their equipment that consume a lot of time. But I think everyone has all discovered that play to earn is somewhat very, very similar to DeFi at the very beginning phase. Like for DeFi, like SushiSwap and like very beginning of YFI, people just need to throw their money in to getting the reward. And as a consequence, then you find that the rich whales, they always have advantages over the small people. So I think the biggest obstacles of play to earn sustainability is actually like people actually don't have loyalty if that game is only a GameFi, but not only a game. Like I spent 3 hours yesterday to play a game, but actually I'm not looking for money, and my loyalty actually comes from my real interest to the game. So we can see, especially on the fourth quarter of this year, a lot of the games are not only creating tokenomics, but actually bringing a lot of the really game factors into the game. Like we see Star Atlas, we see Illuvium, and a lot. So I think really playability could be, I would say, the key factor to the sustainability to a GameFi.
These are really good points. And I want to say, like, I know we brought up Axie Infinity so many times, but if you look at Axie, they've also changed and evolved over time. So it's kind of like a representation of the play to earn ecosystem evolving. So I want to jump over to the next topic. But before I do, I want to thank Supremacy team, Alex. You are the sponsors for this event and putting together this awesome panel and great topic. So thank you, Supremacy team. So moving on to second topic. It's kind of a segue, but how do you increase this GameFi mass adoption? And I know you're talking about Axie Infinity and how is there going to be another one like it with a similar economic model? But yeah, how are we going to solve this? How are we going to help push this to mass adoption? And I know, like, I love to hear from the experts on this panel.
I think we can start by releasing fun games, right? I think it has to start there.
Yeah, I think the quality of the games is huge. But also, if you look at the free-to-play space right now in mobile, everybody has a mobile phone. All you need to do is download an app and open it. I mean, there's almost no barrier to entry. And the adoption right now is kind of crypto and NFTs itself. There's just not as many people on it. And it's intimidating for a lot of people to create a wallet and then figure out how to fund that wallet. And, I think we need easier on and off ramps in these games with things like custody wallets and credit card payments and easier ways to get people into this game rather than, installing browser extensions and trying to figure out what a wallet is for people that have never done it.
Exactly what I was going to say, Albert. I mean, we need to increase the accessibility of the game. Of course, if the game is very addictive and fun to play, that adds to adoption. I mean, people love to play things they enjoy, even if there's no financial reward to it. But right now, we need to remove the wallet conversation. We need to remove the token conversation completely out of the end user's radar. It has to be, you download the game just like any other game, you play it, and then if you want to withdraw the value out of that ecosystem, you click on something and it connects to your account, it loads your credit card, like as simple as possible, so that you don't have to learn crypto, you don't have to learn browser plugins, you don't have to get scammed in the process, which happens to a lot of newcomers into the space, unfortunately, and kind of leaves a bitter taste in their mouths.
Wouldn't it be better just to educate people on how to use wallets and MetaMask and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, we can educate, but educating takes longer than simplifying things. If a trusted party can simplify things, of course, in due time, it's great to educate everyone and bring everyone up to speed, but we may not see the mass adoption fast enough if we're trying to educate everyone, because there's a lot of random information floating out there. I mean, there are still governments saying Bitcoin is only used for, criminal activities and Ethereum is a scam. So it's hard to educate with that kind of environment being, out there.
Yeah, gaming, with games, the rule is you get people into the gameplay as quickly as possible. Any additional step that you throw at them, education, you're going to get drop-offs. So I think the solution is to make it easy for them to get in, and then once they're in the gameplay, then you can start educate or create one path for getting in very quick and playing easy, and then another path for more crypto enthusiasts that can get access to the wallet and the blockchain if they want to.
I think it's been pretty clear up to this stage. If you look at the data, look at Cap Radar has all the data on games, and obviously Axie Infinity on its off-chain side, kind of 2 million DAUs. Yeah, there's only two other big games. The Splinterlands was about 300,000 DAUs. There's Alien Worlds, about 200,000 DAUs. Both of those use effectively kind of browser extension wallets. There's at least 100 games out there that are sort of live doing various things using probably MetaMask. If MetaMask was a way to have a mass market gaming audience, it would have happened by now. MetaMask games have been there since 2017 and CryptoKitties. I love MetaMask. I think it's great. It's just clearly not a mass market way of onboarding games, even though there's however many 10 million DAUs using MetaMask. I mean, it's just not there. So if we are going to,
I've got probably 5 similar widgets on my browser right now. I mean, I'm not saying MetaMask specifically, but
no, but a MetaMask type thing,
But if we're talking about Web3 and decentralization of data and the grand marketplace, I think that it certainly you guys are right. And I've never, first of all, I'm reading the chats here, and I've never seen so many people advocating against education in my life. Not that that's a bad thing or anything, but I agree with what you're saying, that the onboarding needs to be smooth, and maybe not hit them with a browser plugin or a wallet or seed phrase right off the bat. But at least that should be accessible to everybody and clear for those who are looking for it directly as they come in.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I think for the sub 1% who know what they're doing and want to deal with their private keys, then probably most blockchain games are sort of, or most well-designed blockchain games sort of have that as part of their roadmap. But at the moment, the most popular game in the world has 100 million DAUs, and it is a mobile game. Is you have a phone, you get it through an app store, 100 million DAUs. So blockchain games at the moment, is 2% of what the most popular game is. So we shouldn't pretend that we've sort of cracked this by any means. We absolutely have not cracked this by any means. And a big problem with that, I guess we'll come on to infinite.
It just means that there's an infinite market right now, and which is why I also disagree.
I agree.
Which is that there wouldn't be another viral game like this on this level this year. I think that we have plenty of time this year, and there are plenty of candidates that could easily surpass Axie's growth by far.
Well, we'll see by the end of the year. I mean, I don't think we're going to we won't have a mass market blockchain game. I don't think until we have access through distribution channels like app stores and Steam type things. Also,
we'll get to that topic next. Don't worry.
Yeah.
We're
I know. Sorry,
interrupt. But let's go to. I know Miko, you raised your hand earlier. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I feel like that track was a bit of a sidetrack, right? Because in a sense, we're talking about mass adoption. To me, the thing that I think is super important is basic economics, and I'm actually pretty much enjoyed, what Vic was saying, because I think sustainability in gaming relates to things like working not for like a maximum amount of wage, but really working for the delight of your community, right? So if people are working for the delight of their community, sustainable, right? I think the foundation economics aren't being particularly well done, and I think that ultimately it kind of has to do with entertainment value, right? Which is, how does your game both produce entertainment value, and then how does it capture entertainment value? I think those are the key points. And I think obviously the network effects of having UGC is dependent on the quality of the UGC. But I mean, if you can have high quality UGC, then yeah, I think you're in a really good spot.
Thank you, Miko. Let's go to Paul and John before we wrap up for the next topic.
I mean, I totally agree with Miko on the point of entertainment value. The problem is, I think that gets glossed over so quickly in these conversations, and everyone just makes the assumption that if only we had a fun game, hundreds of millions of users would do play to earn. And no one has stopped to think maybe the reality of play to earn, or play and earn, because I think those are total semantics, they're not different, is that you can't make a fun game that's play to earn. And fundamentally, they're designed to be like inverse pyramid schemes. That drives a lot of the gameplay. I don't know if you will ever have 100 million players wanting to play and earn or play to earn, because the behavior behind it is playing for fun. And we always forget the fun part here. And it's just way too easy to just assume this massive market of gamers waiting. If only we educated them, which is another problem, because the reason they reject this is no one likes being told you don't get it. And I just think the chances of this being mainstream or successful on a large scale are zero, because the human compulsion is to play for fun. One last point. WoW is fundamentally the perfect example of play and earn. There's a bunch of people who are gold farmers on WoW. If anything, it just ruins the gameplay for the people who are there for the play, the people who are there for the earn. I just don't think the concept of playing to earn or playing and earning and putting those two things together fundamentally makes sense for gaming.
An executive at Netflix in the early days, of Netflix, one of the executives pointed out at the graphs and that they were going viral, but their main competition wasn't the cable networks. It was actually games, and that's where people were spending more of their time, and that's the market that they were trying to compete against. And when we think about the fact that we're going to, the Internet of Value and Web3 and tokenize everything and incentivize everything, it's quite ironic that it's Netflix that at some point within the next 5 or 10 years is going to have to flip their model on its head from a subscription, the user pays them, to they're going to have to pay out their users in order to keep them. And in that case, when all entertainment is being incentivized like this, so a game actually does have to be quite fun in order to capture anybody's audience.
Oh, that's good. That's a good point. John, do you have to add to that?
Yeah, surely. John from Ellipti, guys. So yeah, like lots of good comments there. But the thing is, like, so I think we need to think about the different types of the gamers, or even the different types of participants, let's say speculators versus like gamers, for fun. Because in Korea, there was a fat-like game that hit DAU 170K like in 2 weeks. It went crazy because there was a leakage of the playbook to the internet cafes like on Naver, which is like a Baidu in Korea, like #1 search engine. Many moms actually just try to participate the game and actually play it. And also we need to think about different types of the games that we can actually make it as P2E or PNE, or in whatever jargons that we can actually put it on. And they were just in it because it was easy to play, and they can easily make around $6 per hour with that playbook. And that's how they actually hit that DAU. And it actually goes to the potential roadblock to the mass adoption that still some of the governments, especially the Korean, it actually prohibits the P2E games to be on App Store. So it was actually shut down from the App Store. And that's why like the games like Linear 4, which is crazy here in LATAM, also it is a Korean game, don't show up in the Korean App Store because of this. So like going back to this question about like mass market adoption, I feel like we need to definitely firstly consider the different types of the gamers or different types of the participants. And it shouldn't be just entitled to one game, but rather it should be like a sector-wise perspective that we need to consider, because this game was actually based on Clayton, which is like a regional block, like layer 1, like that is run by the conglomerate called Kakao, which is like an IT giant in Korea. And it has this mobile wallet called Clip, which is really easy to just like people to actually use it without considering this Web3 data, any sort of like Web3 related concepts. Although it is not for the future like vision that we have, that we can't even envision at the moment, but it is really easy tool to actually onboard any users, even without any further education about MetaMask, or because it's so hard. And I mean, we've been doing a lot of educational like sessions, like mentoring. And the thing is, even the ones who are trying to start their own blockchain startups, they don't know much about how to actually like use DeFi apps even. And yeah, so like, and another thing is, if we think about the platform strategy that the DeFi, in the DeFi sector that we've seen, especially with the layer 1s, we think we should also think about how layer 1s or even app chain like strategy that we can think of. Just think about running. If we think about internally on the tokenomics, we can only think about XE, SLP. But if we think about external, external aspects, we can also think about Ronin. And now, like, I think Sky Navy's strategy is going just focusing on Axie to now moving on to Ronin, and where they can now do the infrastructure play with their higher DAU. So I think individual games, yes, we need to definitely make it better and make it fun, right? But at the same time, it is not just about these individual games, but rather as a sector-wise perspective that we need to consider as a whole.
John, that was really insightful. I'm going to throw a little curveball here and actually move to the next topic. But you're mentioning Ronin, you're mentioning SLP, but the problem here is that, I mean, in many cases, just like the layer ones, you're creating silos. And I could even stretch that even further and say an app store, or what happened with Steam. Steam says, hey, no more blockchain games. Now, these become the gatekeepers that can prevent, interoperability or even access to people. So I wanted to, spend a little bit of time talking about this topic. Where is the future of interoperability for this industry? Douglas, you had your real hand up.
Well, I want to just make an observation here. It's related to, I think, everything that we've been talking about, including sustainability and play to earn versus just playing for fun, which is, if you think about it, I think the rewards part, what people are actually earning, is extremely important. And I don't think we've talked about that enough, because a lot of people couldn't care less about earning digital assets, NFTs, points within the game, maybe points within the game, okay, so they can level up. But I think one thing, if you kind of talk about being able to use rewards or whatever you earn across different platforms, and to kind of create some kind of interoperability, at least on the earning side, is to think about what you are actually allowing the gamers to earn. And I'm going to kind of suggest something that may be heresy here, but I'm going to suggest that you let people, and I think one person actually mentioned this, let people actually earn hard dollars, hard currency, not just these things that are kind of in the metaverse, in the ether, purely digital and online. But if you think about it, it's currency, actual money that can be used across platforms, that I think can be one way to think about kind of creating not only this interoperability, but also potentially sustainability, and also incentivizing a certain segment of players to play to earn games. And maybe even those folks, as Paul was suggesting, who are just there for the fun of the game, to just kind of passively, without even doing anything, just by playing, earning currency.
Are you saying that cryptocurrencies are not money?
No, I mean dollars. I mean fiat. Sorry, I mean actual fiat, whatever it is, whether you're talking about the US dollar, the Japanese yen, the British pound, whatever it is. That's what I'm talking about. Because, I think that there's, I think that is an interesting concept. And I actually want to raise something kind of related to this that I just saw today on Cointelegraph. You may have seen it. If you look at the volume of transactions completed at the Beijing Winter Olympic Games, so far, there has been a higher volume of transactions using the new Chinese CBDC than through Visa. Okay, I mean, that kind of tells you something. So people could use, right? I mean, you could give people a reward, and maybe I'm kind of contradicting myself, but when more governments come out with CBDCs, giving people CBDCs, okay, so they feel like, okay, even if it's digital, it's actual money that they're used to using. And that could make the entire concept of earning a little more comfortable to a lot of people. And it may make it a little bit easier. People were talking about having easier on-ramps on the gaming side, but I'm talking about maybe making people more comfortable, not just on the gaming side, but on the actual earning side.
That is
By
an interesting
giving them-
point.
Just FYI, we have 20 minutes left on this panel, and just to get as much collaborative discussion here, let's quickly go through. And so maybe keep 1 minute responses to each, and so we can get everybody's thought leadership in here. So thanks, Douglas.
Yeah, does anybody have anything to chime in about that? Oh, we have Alan.
Yeah, so I think interoperability actually this world starts very much from the beginning of the DeFi. So I think like if we still compare DeFi to the GameFi, we see that DeFi actually really have realized the interoperability. Like we use this kind of protocol, actually maybe they're plugged into another protocol and they actually influence each other. So I think what is the difference between the GameFi and the centralized game? I think one very important part is actually you have the ownership on your own, like the equipment you use in this game, like maybe 20 years before when the server is being shut down, then you lost this equipment. But now you can use the equipment in multi economics or multi GameFi. So I think the real interoperability maybe in the future is that this world or the whole metaverse is consisted of different GameFis. And the equipment you can use in this game, you can bring to that game. And the two world or two economy, actually, they can influence each other. Like the European Union and United States, they actually, although they are isolated, but they actually, they have quite a bit connection on the token economy, or not the token economy, but the real economy.
Yeah.
So yeah, so maybe one thing we can imagine that everyone we will enter in a parallel metaverse in the future, and on the very first steps, you can choose to be in one of the like rookie villages designed by several games, and then in the second phase, coming into several the second kind of the metaverses, maybe for the second phase. So in this way. Yeah, I think I'm running out of time, but
no, that's okay.
This is the kind of the interoperability we can think of. Then I think those can really bringing and bridging everyone to a big, I would say, the metaverse that we're imagined, like we see in the movie.
In a large way, I think that the path to interoperability is already inevitable, and it's already happening. When you were asking about iPhones and Androids, and I think the first iteration that we see is Twitter, right? When they implemented the NFT avatars. I mean, that's bringing Web3 right to the masses. You have to download MetaMask to your iPhone, actually, in order to set that up and have the hexagon Twitter profile. But I think that what Miko is saying about bringing value, I think that it's absolutely spot on. And Axie Infinity, the initial model, of course, is a Ponzi scheme. And I say that, of course, with awareness that many cryptocurrencies, in essence, take this model of Ponzi scheme, not that they're necessarily Bernie Madoff, doing it illicitly or something like that, but rather the model is user inflation, right? Where the amount of new users coming in create this kind of vacuum where the demand on a specific token can suddenly go out of control. But the general definition of Ponzi is that you take money from the new users and pay it out to the old users, and that's basically what Axie was doing. But also at the same time, you have these digital assets that are growing in value. They're growing in value both because of the user inflation, but also because the underlying currency, Ethereum and all NFTs and everything like that, are also raising its tide. But now we have a bear market, right? And that's when economic models really get tested, right?
You're right, man. Do you know, I want to say
why
right
they're forced to rework their economic model right now and provide. And what they're doing is making it less of a Ponzi. They're taking the new users and saying, okay, you guys can now come in for free. You don't have to buy in anymore. And they're essentially fixing that model and making it more fun at the same time by adding more strategy to the game.
if you're watching the chat, there's also additional conversations going on in the chat. So people feel free to look into that. But let's go to Alex.
Yeah, I want a printout of this chat transcript if somebody can hook that up.
We'll share it. We'll share it with all the speakers. Go ahead, Alex.
I think interoperability and just access to the platforms that the big Silicon Valley and obviously Seattle companies run is a big problem. I mean, we can't get on the App Store. We can't advertise on Google. We can't advertise on Twitter. You know, we're essentially being gatekept by billion-dollar companies. And I think what we'll see is that they'll enter the space like Facebook is, and they'll try to still keep us out of it as much as possible. So, you know, Facebook are essentially going down the same road, and yet you still can't advertise play to earn games on Facebook. You know, so they'll essentially keep us out. They'll keep us out of the mainstream until they can enter the space and take it for themselves. That's my personal belief anyway.
Thanks, Alex. So I want to save time for the upcoming topic. Sorry, Paul, we won't be able to get to you on this one. But I want to go over and to move to the next topic, what are the development opportunities in GameFi? Because a lot of people are talking about like Web3. And also even some of the existing games that are really well positioned for this transition, like, you know, Roblox or some games like this. But let's talk about what are the development game opportunities in GameFi. And Anthony, you can start this one off.
Yeah, of course. So I come from a game dev background. I had a lot of thoughts on that side on interoperability, but I'll skip ahead for this one. So, you know, what we're seeing is two different approaches. We're seeing larger game developers or existing game developers trying to retrofit their existing content with some sort of economy. And maybe it starts simple, like essentially enabling like a community economy with NFT trading. Instead of just buying a skin in Warzone, for example, I can buy it and then maybe sell it on a secondary market. And they can start in very simple ways like that to kind of broach the subject with their users, essentially. And it talks about education almost through implicit mechanics, like good game design. But then we're also seeing game developers that are now moving from, you know, the initial Axie model of you have to pay to play, essentially, into integrating it inherently into the game design from the ground up. And this is the same transition we saw from premium to free to play, where the first attempts at free to play had kind of varying levels of success in the way that they monetized. These developers are now figuring out that there's really, the way that we see it, is 3 levels of monetization that you can engage users in, and they can design around that with their game mechanics in mind. And it's the free-to-play layer of what Axie's trying to do now, of anybody can get in and play and enjoy the game as much as they want without having to pay. Then there's the play-to-earn layer, which would essentially be, or play and earn, whatever you want to call it, which would essentially be replacing the current freemium layer of games, where people that are engaging can start to participate in the economy by not only buying, but also being able to trade and sell and really do whatever they want with their assets. And then the third new tier that we're seeing that actually really introduced with a bang was the investor tier, is what I would call it. People that like the experience so much or want to try to monetize the experience, whatever their motivations may be. It's people that are putting real dollars at work in the game to try to generate yield or own a piece of the game, or maybe have a part of the governance token, whatever they want, to be able to participate at a higher level in these. And I don't know if that necessarily replaces the whale, but it's kind of a new tier of participant and financial participant we're seeing in games at this time. So the advancement that I think is in front of us is better games, as everybody's mentioned on this call, I think, at this point, but also better design around the economy inherently within that game, so that everything fits together symbiotically. And there's a real motivation as a player, regardless of whether you're into crypto or not, to just have fun with the experience and then level up through it as you get further into your enjoyment of it.
Yeah,
Thank you, Anthony.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Go ahead,
I
John.
totally agree with Anthony's view. And also, I think it's really important to think about this community itself. So we've been engaged with many guilds lately, and like, for example, the guild can be seen in various angles. For example, it could be early stage venture capital for the games, or it could be actually sourcing like actual users to games. But most important thing is, I think, is sort of supplementing the QA and consulting part to the games out there. And the thing is, like, especially, like we see a lot of like publishers lately, and in Korea, we've seen a lot of like big publishers, which is called 3N. They are quite lately, the commentary from the users is that they're not communicating pretty well. But like we are making this from scratch. And that's why we have this certain topic, certain concept of guild, right? And they're like actually becoming like a entity that can actually deliver any words, any kind of like thoughts from the user's perspective, where even QA team of the bigger corporates cannot actually catch on. So I think that part is really kind of like important. And that's why now, like these big like game companies are trying to communicate with the users more. And even, as they now know that it can make money, it's like a money printing machine, they're now trying to actually get in to the blockchain layer. So if you see the recent, strategic partnerships like Landmarble, for example, with Binance, you see a lot of like, relatively bigger companies are joining in and trying to make their own P2E games, where we can also see the, game quality increasing, right? So I think and I think it leads to like the token holder perspective, where we cannot like just think about the user perspective, but also the token holder, right? Because, ultimately it is more becoming direct to the actual players and traders, like, or potential token holders, or even like, the game items. It can be really easily kind of like transited to like the money itself, right? In terms of like USDC or whatever like type. So yeah, I think these kind of like slow transition is definitely important like aspect that we should spot on.
Thank you, John, for sharing that.
I think a lot of people are not aware of just how big and in some ways powerful a lot of these guilds are getting, and how many actual players they have, on their Discord servers active, and then a lot of them kind of operate like little armies. They have mission control, and they work together to achieve common goals, and a lot of it is moving outside of the games that they were originally created for. The guild space is extremely exciting.
Do you not think, though, I worry quite a bit actually that the guild space has raised too much capital on a very specific economic model that is sort of predetermined on there being lots of Axie Infinity type games. So at the moment, there are 10,000 guilds, most of them very small. There are probably about 20 guilds that are probably really well capitalized. YGG, $1 billion of value, mainly its own token. But they have hundreds of thousands of users in their guilds. The reason those people have joined those guilds is to make money. There's only one game at scale that allows them to make money, which is called Axie Infinity, which has basically totally rejigged its economy to stop people making money at the low end, fine at the high end. So I worry quite a bit that in the short term, guilds have enormous power. I think you're exactly right, Alex. But they're looking for a very specific sort of game that can be sort of part of a sort of a very simple play to earn economy that extracts a certain amount of value for them. And I think they have invested quite a lot of money in a certain type of game by buying tokens and NFTs, and then will sort of be injecting players into those games almost because the guilds sort of require. The guilds have almost become the tail that wags the dog in terms of game design. Is sort of what I'm worried about. I think in time it sorts itself out, because I think the people who are running guilds are, they know blockchain and they will sort of sort it out. But I think in the short term, for the next 6 months, I sort of worry that we see a game like kind of Theta Arena, which had loads of guilds behind it, got loads of downloads. The economy was just not, well designed for it, and it just didn't go anywhere. But there was a lot of guilds, there's a lot of guild power sort of pushing that game, and I think we'll see, similar Illuvium. All the names I guess we know, but there's quite a lot of games that are being built up over the next 6 months that have a lot of guild power and investment in them, and I think those games would potentially do better if they didn't have that certain pressure behind them.
I think I would want to comment about guilds. I mean, obviously, I'm an early investor in YGG, and I think the thing to they're not just pushing into Axie because individual guild members can make earnings there or yield, right? Like they're seeking yield across the metaverse, right? And really, the best way to reason about YGG is that they're, essentially a hedge fund like investor with 10,000 plus analysts, right? So in a sense, like the economic extraction of value is something that sits outside the game. And I agree with you, but I don't think it's the tail wagging the dog. I actually think they're quite effective at providing a valuable coordination function. I think the way that games defend themselves against guilds in terms of value capture is that a game should have a built-in guild organization mechanism, right? And I think Axie missed the boat when they allowed YGD to come in and basically take the majority of the value, because the majority of the value isn't grinding Axies. The majority of the value is investing in the next Axie.
Yeah, I would also be pretty much bullish on really built on what Mika says. And I think the role of the guilds is obviously not only helping access for people who do not know to get access to these play to earn games, but also to understand really the consumer behaviors and to drive more that interoperability between different type of games and platforms. There's a really interesting space developing there in terms of also how guilds perform their own economic model. So I think it's definitely a place to watch, and they definitely have a role to play.
Somebody in the chat here asked which traditional game is closest to being Web3 ready. I think the answer would be Roblox. I mean, by far, right? I mean, they're already basically there. They've got an in-game currency. They've got in-game assets. The only thing that they're really missing is the interoperability. I don't know, what they're thinking at the corporate level. Obviously they're enjoying their monopoly over their domain at the moment, but maybe eventually they'll realize that it makes more sense for them to cooperate with other games and allow their assets to move away from their control. Who knows? We'll see. It's a very parallel pond, I think.
Yeah, agreed with that point. They're definitely close to being there. They're just missing the transparency. They already have like limited items, so you can see that there's only 2,000 this item. If they had that third-party marketplace or allowed it, and also a much more competitive rev share with the creators.
I want to move into our final topic, and I know we're only in the final 3 minutes, so I can make it kind of like a final point from everyone. But if everyone can go around and we can kind of comment on where do you see the future of play to earn gaming, and also where are the channels, where are those opportunities for games to grow? Examples like, hey, there's Discord or TikTok, but love to hear if we can go around and everyone can just, chime in a quick about that. So what is the future of play to earn gaming, and where are those where are those best growth channels for blockchain games?
I'm happy to kick this thing off. So I would say the thing that's insane is, if you kind of watch what's happening in games, right? Like the games themselves become their own kind of channels. Obviously, like, it's word of mouth is the killer channel, right? So, to me, when you think about games that are really, really hot right now, a lot of it just has to do with people just buzzing and telling their friends, right? So in a sense, like, I think if you build a good game, like, people, it's kind of a misnomer to say build it and they will come, but I honestly believe it. Like, if you have something really good, people will come over and play. That's my feeling.
Yeah, that's my feeling too.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. Oh, I was just going to agree with Mika. I couldn't agree more. I think the future here is higher production quality and better gameplay, and that will produce less barriers of entry into this space because people want to play better games. And I think there's a lot of companies working on that right now as we speak. So we're going to be seeing that soon.
Yeah, again, I think mobile is the future because the simplest interaction is with your phone or tablet. You have it on you all the time. And if we can, the biggest challenge we have is the blockchain layer, of course. It's not the gaming. I mean, there are very addictive mobile games already hitting hundreds of millions of downloads and incredible usage numbers. It's just the blockchain element, although so desirable and what we all want, makes it so complicated for some people that they drop off. And if we can solve the blockchain problem, not problem, but if we can address the blockchain challenge, then we're going to see a lot of great growth in blockchain-based games and play and earn and play to earn. And because that's going to be the main driver and main point of contact people have. Now they have to go to a laptop, they have to go to a computer, which a lot of people don't even use in their daily lives, and that creates a barrier.
But for me, it's clearly also, again, the interoperability, right? If you can start, for example, turning investment decisions into consumption decisions. I don't know, you bought like a piece of art because you wanted to own it, and then you realize, well, maybe if I can use it in a game or sell it off to somebody because it has a utility somewhere else, I think that's clearly the future.
Yeah, I'll keep mine short as well. I think play to earn is a natural extension of free to play moving forward, and that's a really big part of our thesis in investing.
Yeah, I'll keep mine short as well. I totally agree with that. Microtransaction model plays well with play to earn. And I think what you'll see is more interoperability of economies within this space, so you can move assets between games. And I think a lot of games will start working together to make this a reality. And I think that is the real metaverse. That's the real play. And yeah, I think within the next couple of years that'll be reality.
Yeah, I think.
Paul, you want to close last comment from you?
I was just going to say there's probably no one more bullish on the planet on gaming than I am. All of my investing, literally everything I do is focused on it. But I truly think in 3 years from now, no one's going to be talking about play to earn. Not because it's not valuable, not because it's not interesting. It's just a renaming of sort of existing behaviors for the most part, or existing things that exist. My view is that it's really blockchain and crypto looking for a way to latch onto gaming somehow. It's a little bit of a solution looking for a problem, and it will find a way. But I definitely want to have no part of a future where people need to be paid to play a game. That's not the future of gaming.
Yeah, and I'd like to end up very shortly. So I think when we talk about Web3, one very important thing is that all the people, when we are in Web2, so the companies create content and all the people are entertaining the content. And in Web2 gaming, so we see the gaming studio are producing the content and we're all entertaining. But in Web3, I think a play to earn, what is very important is that we see Sandbox, we see Decentraland. So a lot of the content are really bringing the UGC content into a massive adoption. So that I think in the near future, not everyone is playing the same game, although we're in the same game with the same name, but everyone's having a different experience. And the things that you're creating is really being rewarded by the ecosystem. So one very important serious problem now in the play to earn system is that, especially in games like Sandbox, is that I think the priority of the rewards is given to the asset holders. So that is very much like the real estate in the real economy. So I think the real revolution will happen when I would say the value chain really puts a priority on not only the asset holders, but also the content creators that can really initiate those players to create content and can be entertained by the whole other people. So I think that's really important for the next generation of GameFi.
Alan, thank you. And I want to say we are running just a little bit over, but I want to thank everyone for sharing their opinions. We had some disagreements here and there, but overall, very insightful discussion on play to earn gaming. I want to thank Supremacy for sponsoring this event. You can follow them and follow their upcoming game at supremacy.game. And I want to thank all the speakers here for being a part of this. This is truly insightful. I think we have to have a part 2. That chat, the chat during the event was just as insightful as the actual event. So we'll share the recording and we'll share some of the transcript to the speakers. I want to say thank you so much for contributing. And this is actually educating the community, is what we were just talking about earlier. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.